So I asked you to read My Father's Love Letters by Yusef Komunyakaa and kind of look at it, see if you've found anything interesting in terms of the line breaks and in terms of the use of enjambment, how it implies more than one thing. And now I'm going to go through and show you some of the things that I'm observing and see if you observe the same things. And just to say too, right? It's like those winter Sundays, a man speaking, looking back on an experience that he had with his father. So in Jack's is beer. So on Fridays he'd open a can of Jack's after coming home from the mill. So I go through though. I'm really just looking at the line breaks, and I find this an interesting one right here. He'd asked me to write a letter to my mother, who sent postcards of desert flowers taller than men. He would beg, promising to never beat her. I like that he put taller than men, period, he would beg on the same line. So there's something about, there's like a little bit of a, what do you call it? Something that doesn't quite make sense, right? It's opposites, it's a contradiction. Taller than men, yet he would beg. And when you beg, you're down on your knees, right? But maybe it takes that kind of humility, and maybe that humility made him bigger, taller than men. So I like that the poem has that little embedded suggestion because of the line break. He could have just said he would beg, he could have changed that line. So it was like, so he could have put up here, he could have said, who sent postcards of desert flowers taller than men. And then he could have had his break here. He would beg, promising to never beat her. Changes things, doesn't it? Um, Something else that I find interesting. Again, promising to never beat her again. Okay, so first, promising to never beat her. You think, okay, he beat her once. Again, this is a pattern. This happens more than once. And then again, somehow I was happy. Again, somehow I was happy. He's heard this before. He's heard his father saying he'll never do it before. But then the line goes on. Somehow I was happy she had gone. So see how the line, we understand what he means because we don't read the poem that slowly, right? We're reading it, somehow I was happy she had gone. But when you go back, there are these little, there's an innuendo here. There's some implicit double meanings here because of the line breaks. Um, and he would always slip in a reminder of Mary Lou, or the son wanted to slip in a reminder of, like, Mary Lou Williams' polka dots and moonbeams won't make the swelling go down. That's a song, I think is an old country song. Other things that are kind of interesting, ending on the verb bulged. His carpenter apron always bulged with, much better than if he had ended it like bulged with, right? It's better to end on a concrete or a nice verb or a nice concrete noun, something more powerful. Always bulged with old nails, a claw hammer looped at his side, and extension cords coiled around his feet. And all of these images are great too. Even though I'm looking at line breaks in this poem, there's a lot of great imagery, and it suggests very serpentine, a little bit snake-like, right? And I like this break. Words rolled from under the pressure of my ballpoint love. And words rolled from under the pressure. He could have had under the pressure of my ballpoint. But such a smart line break to break it after pressure, because he feels the pressure too, right? His father is illiterate. He needs his son to write this letter to his mother. Of course, the son feels conflicted. He's caught between the parents. He doesn't really want his mother to come back to the father who has beat her before and will probably beat her again. And so, he's doing this for his father. He's writing the letter and he's hoping his mother will just, burn it or tear it up or not take it seriously. Words rolled from under the pressure of my ballpoint. Okay, so it's both pressures, love and love. Like, I love that he could have put love, baby, but just my ballpoint, love, boom, baby, honey, please. We sat in the quiet brutality of voltage meters and pipe threaders lost between sentences. He really gives you a sense of that father's world, with all the tools. It's a kind of a harder, harsher world. And yet there's something about suddenly the concrete, the gleam of that 5-pound wedge on the concrete floor pulled a sunset through the doorway. And this is where the poem, there's a little bit more light that comes into it. He uses that wedge to bring in some light, and he imagines his mother, right? I wondered if she laughed and held them over a gas burner. And he hopes that, I think. And then my father could only sign his name, but he'd look at blueprints and say how many bricks formed each wall. This man who stole roses formed each wall. This man. Like, did you catch that? I mean, I feel like there's a suggestion that he's like a wall too. He's got a wall up. But of course, the line goes on. He's enjamming it. This man who stole roses and hyacinth for his yard would stand there with eyes closed and fists balled, laboring over a simple word, almost redeemed by what he tried to say. That's a great line break, too. He could have put almost down here, laboring over a simple word, almost redeemed by what he tried to say. I think the almost really is key here, right? Laboring over a simple word, almost. You almost got it. You almost are redeemed, but you're not. You're not entirely redeemed, right? And there's something, I think it's a sympathetic portrait of his father, even though his father has this brutality in him. He's really trying, and you know that he does love this woman, and yet he's failed her again and again because of his violence, his violent tendencies. And yet there is something in the father that appreciates beauty, right, and appreciates softness. He stole roses and hyacinths, I mean, that he stole flowers. There's something about that that's kind of beautiful. So those are the things that I've noticed, and in terms of the lines really working well. And if you go down this poem too, everything is now feet, pressure, love. He never ends a line with a coordinated conjunction or a preposition. They're verbs, they're nouns, um, that's pretty much what he's pronoun her, my mother noun. So it's a tight poem, and he's just breaking the lines pretty smartly. So I hope you saw some of those things too, and maybe you have other ideas as well, and we'll have an optional discussion forum again. Okay.